are these people?
I think that this one is kind of hilarious, and you're going to see why. And he sent this over, and I'm like, this is perfect. Oh, all right. So,
oh my god.
won't anybody think of the middle managers? My word.
Won't anybody think?
Won't anybody think of the middle managers? Because they're caught in a lose-lose between layoffs, burnout, and return to office policies. One millennial explains how he's handling the worst year ever. Dude.
Oh my god.
I love this article
Kyle,
already. I love this article already.
A middle manager at a staffing company, said that a brutal combination of layoffs, fights about remote work. Gee, I wonder what the fights are about. The people telling you to fuck off because they just changed their whole life around remote work. Busy work and burnout had made this his toughest year yet leading a team. He's not alone. Managers like Kyle are burning out. And first off, the managers are burning out. Right. Let's not draw the connection there like right off the bat as to why managers are burning out. They're looking for jobs more aggressively. 55% of managers are watching for or actively seeking new roles, compared to 49% of individual contributors or non-managers, putting managers in survival mode.
That is literally half the workforce.
Yes.
Okay?
Thank you.
55% of managers and 49% of contributors. Who's left? Who's left? I guess the worker bees, and that's like an 80%. They're always looking for a new job 100% of the time because they'll take a better deal in 30 seconds. Come on, dude.
I can attest to that. I'm just watching.
This is already gold. I love this. I love this article. I'm in love. Okay, so Insider, by the way, complete corporate owned and controlled by a German massive financier. I believe it's Axel something or other. And yeah, I know that Max Blumenthal's talked about them before at the Gray Zone about who owns and runs them and what their agenda is, which is corporate good all the time. So I'll let you continue.
And look at this part. Look at this part right here. It's like they don't even have to get that far into the article before, like, the puzzle pieces start coming together really quick. Kyle said that the staffing industry began seeing high-level layoffs last year, and his company cracked down on remote work. His employer also implemented a hiring freeze, downsizing his team.
Well, that would suck.
We've lost a lot more tenured people, so we've had to rely on a lot more inexperienced people, plus myself as a manager having to step in. Listen, I'm sorry if nothing looks better, by the way, than, and I say this as someone who has worked in management before. I'll step in and do tickets in a heartbeat. There is no better look than your leader charging in a battle with you. I will die on that hill.
Yep.
Anyway.
Right.
I'm just trying to broker all of this, keeping that management style of being really employee-centered and retention-centered, which has gotten harder and harder. He said these losses. This shit triggered me right now because we talked about what happened to me, and I'll go into that at the end a little bit, basically where I'm at. He said these losses, including offers he had to revoke, which I'm sure that's happened to other people. It happened to me directly right as I was about to, as I've explained here before, right as I was about to take my wife out for a celebration dinner, this company was like, sorry, we forgot somebody in the company wanted it. Were devastating to his workload, as he needed to take on the work he would have assigned to others, meaning he's had much less time to grow and coach and grow his team. He called it a nasty attrition cycle.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough to watch a team that you had built lose people who have been with me since 2017 and 2018, Kyle said, especially when you've worked so hard to keep them in the first place. That's just so depressing. It's like, I just see him sitting there in his Zoom call, like, please, man, just stick it out.
Just stay. Please.
I know you're making minimum wage, but we need your labor. Okay, It's not my fault that the CEO is exploiting us. He's exploiting me too, which is actually probably true.
It's terrible.
An earlier Gallup survey found that among companies that are making cuts, middle managers are at the greatest risk of getting laid off this year. This has put more pressure on managers to do their work while also navigating additional challenges that emerged during the pandemic. Now, what usually happens as someone who did manage a team who got laid off, what that means is they're going to almost certainly outsource the labor, and they're not gonna like restructure. What they're gonna do is they're going to take the existing managers and they're just gonna make them work more. They're gonna give
Mm-hmm.
them more direct reports. They're gonna give them a higher workload. And then what they do is they use those managers who are laid off, and the same goes for workers, really. You know, um, they use those layoffs to scare the living shit out of those people who didn't get laid off. And they'll make it very subtle. Just kind of a, "Oh, thank goodness you made the cut, eh?" Or, "Oh, thank God that, you're still with us. We really appreciate you still being with us." That's a Make no mistake, that's a veiled threat of like, "You better be thankful for all this extra work that we're putting on your plate, because if you speak up, you might be next."
Yeah.
Let me see
Oh,
here.
hey.
Managers are needing to flex new muscles
Oh,
to
wait,
lead
stop, stop.
differently in
I wanted
hybrid
to stop. I wanted to
environments.
stop you at one thing that caught my eye, and now that I can actually show this
Mhm.
to everyone. But he says that they had to revoke offers. Okay, he asked for partial anonymity. I don't blame him, but he said that offers he's had to revoke. I can't imagine why his team might be looking for the exits when you've got people revoking offers. You think that doesn't get around? And yeah, that weighs on a manager's head for sure. When you are
Yep.
when you put an offer out and then you then have to revoke it, then you're losing teammates that you've been working with for 6, 7, 8 years. First of all, that's business, that's a company. And the fact that you have a close knit team for 5, 6 years means that they were all being probably underpaid, because you really need to move every 2 to 3 years in order to properly maximize your value in the marketplace against, or corporate just starts taking advantage of you and hiring your replacements or your coworkers for more money, because the market goes up
Yep.
and costs go up just on average every couple of years. So and they're not going to keep raising you to keep up with the market, unfortunately. Some do, but most don't. And that's what we're seeing is all that is going to the top executive level, not even the middle managers, and they're completely screwed. But I did want to mention and call attention to the fact that this guy even admits that he had to revoke offers. Not only that, like you said, they're going to heap more workers and more people for you to manage, but they may also make you a player coach again and may put you back in the field or in the, back doing the job that you were managing people doing, which now means that you're taking on a dual role. You have to not only be a manager, but you have to be a coworker to the other people there. And that's
Yep.
really challenging. And
I
it's a
saw that
step
happen to me personally. I
and it's a step
was
backwards.
I was I was a people manager. I was also doing learning development. So I was dual wielding those two things, which, in case you're wondering how I got it done, I almost didn't. And my
Mm-hmm.
wife is very adamant that I should not ever go back to where that was, because it was 12-hour days, it was stress every day. Uh yeah, that absolutely does happen. And it's and on top of that, I mean, if the queues got swamped, or, my existing team just couldn't handle the workload, they'd be like, "Hey, can you step in and maybe help out here?" And it's like, "Well, I don't really want to, but I know it's going to happen if I push back." So
Yeah.
it happens. You're dead on.
So let you finish there.
Okay, so let's see here. Okay, so managers are needing to flex new muscles to lead differently in hybrid environments, and are also in the emotionally burdensome and exhausting position of being caught between leaders and employees on the topic of return to office. We've covered this ad nauseum. We all know what this is about. Spoiler alert, it's the interests of capital.
And I think the managers themselves, I think the middle managers themselves, by the way, also don't want to return to the office. They can't admit it, but they don't really want to return to the office, although they're also being told by their bosses that the best way to control the people underneath you is to have them in front of you rather than remotely.
Yeah.
But that's every study shows that that's incorrect, and you just need to change your management style to be able to work with people remotely. But I've been working remotely for 18, 19 years and been pretty damn successful doing it. And there's no reason why most roles can't, at least when in the roles we're in.
The funniest thing about this piece of propaganda is like they're acting like key performance indicators aren't like just that they don't exist.
Mm-hmm.
They're just like, no, you have to helicopter manage your people because we have no other way of keeping track of their productivity whatsoever.
Like you're not already tracking it all through a CRM tool and ticket systems and time management. I mean, they're already managing you down to the bone anyway, to the point where they know what you're doing pretty much as it's happening. And they want that real-time update because they need to update their investors and they want to be micromanagers to make sure that you're not going anywhere. Now, the other thing I think also about this is working from home gives employees more time to look for a job without management necessarily seeing them if they're not using some kind of an eye tracking software and time tracking to make sure that the employee doesn't leave their desk for more than 10 minutes. I know someone that happens to. They work for an insurance company, and if they leave their desk for more than 10 minutes or their laptop, they start accruing time off, like for real.
Ew. That's so gross.
It's terrible. We can't even imagine living like that. Sorry.
We had something similar insofar as like, just as at this company now, you had to like put yourself into different statuses. And normally that's kind of fine. Most time tracking software, you can get up and like, go to the washroom or, find somewhere to put the small furry animal that has its claws in your ear, for example. Not saying that happened today.
Nah.
But there's some of them that are programmed to like, they're like response programs. So like after a while, if there isn't any input on the computer, they'll go into like an idle status. And then sure enough, whenever that's happened to me for one reason or another, you're getting flooded with DMs by a supervisor human saying like, "Hey, are you okay? What's up? What are you doing? I need you to go back into status." So yeah, that's awful. The fact that it turns into time off, but some corpulent sociopath thought up that idea and thought, "Hey, you know what? Like, you know what would be a really great way to save a lot of money? If Bob ever has a heart attack mid-shift."
Right?
Sorry, that's awfully morbid, but I'm in a morbid kind of mood. If someone's ever away from their position for 10 minutes, we can just stop paying them, which is unhinged because it's like, first off, no, you're paying for their time, okay? If they're stuck doing your job shit for 8 hours a day, you shouldn't be like nickel and diming that time, but my God, do they nickel and dime them?
No, they're putting you into basically break mode. I wouldn't say they're docking you, but they're putting you get a certain amount of break time every day, and that's what they start accruing break time if you're away from the computer for more than 10 minutes because they figured God forbid you were on a work phone call away from your computer. We're in the bathroom. It's gross. Anyway, so Heather Barrett is saying that it's exhausting to be caught in the middle, which managers are, and then I sidetracked us like I do. But go ahead, I'll let you read this one. This one's your deal.
Yeah. The conflicts about remote work, coupled with new metrics his team needed to meet, have worn him down. Okay, right. New metrics his team needed to meet. We all know what that means.
Increase sales. More.
Increase your sales. We need you to do more tickets an hour. We need you to take more calls an hour. We need you to, collect more succulents an hour.
Wow.
Garfield reference. You
Wow.
know, it's on top of an increasing workload, and it's like it's right there. This is like another version of nobody wants to work anymore in an article, but it's pointing out in plain day throughout the whole fucking article, like,
Mm-hmm.
oh no, that actually makes a lot of sense. All of his problems are actually caused by this this bullshit. That's why.
Right.
Um, all this on top of an increasing workload that he had to take on after some tenured staff were laid off or quit.
Wow. It sounds like
I don't
your
even know
office.
I don't even know who to feel bad for. Yeah, my office, I think someone else quit today, by the way. Like, my office is just hemorrhaging people. Um, oh, we can actually talk about that a little bit. I had an exit interview today. That was interesting.
Oh, we could definitely talk about that.
Um,
But
he's making
yeah,
calls in between one-on-one meetings and putting it, oh my God,
this is
putting an
literally
hour
what
or two extra every day.
to get it
Yeah,
done. This is what I was just
like,
saying is that he's now got to do two roles. He's got to manage people, but he's also got to do their job at the same time and manage a load of tickets. And how do you? That's hard. You either manage or you play. A player manager is very very hard to do, and they have to reduce the number of people that you manage, which they don't, and they reduce the number of tickets or things that you should be able to handle quota wise, which they don't. So yeah, him. I got two
yeah,
small kids at
not
home.
yeah,
Dude,
now I'm just like, oh man, fuck. Well, I'm also sitting there like I've been there. I've completely been here watching like your whole work-life balance just turn into all work, and you're just like, why am I even alive?
well,
Like you think that at one point.
and here he is saying, watching my own work life balance evaporate, partly because of return to office. He's got 2 hours a day of commuting time now that he's got to deal with, plus whatever, getting downtown, parking, traffic, coffee, all the other crap that goes with that. And now you have to
Mhm.
leave your two small kids at home every day in the morning. Where's daddy going? Versus daddy's going downstairs in his pajamas to do work. It's fucking awesome.
Yeah, and it's not just that. It's like that shit adds up. And one thing I feel like that's in like an unspoken kind of communication is one of the plus sides of remote work is that like you've got someone who doesn't have like an hour and a half commute each way. So it's like it may feel like it's easier to get them to work overtime or put in more hours because they can justify it in their heads by saying like, oh well, it's just an hour. I would have spent this time in traffic anyway.
Right?
God damn, this is so depressing.
Right? I feel
Their teams
terrible for
went
this
through
cat.
restructuring.
Of course.
42% reported budget cuts,
Well,
forcing them
look,
to change their workflows and team structures.
and we've been talking about this with the massive amount of layoffs that have been happening this year. Yeah, that's what's going to happen. You've got to change your workflows. Meaning you have to take on more work.
Yeah,
Oh,
which
of course, a salary raise may not be the solution. Fuck you, pay me. No,
no, of
don't
course
pay me
not.
more. No, don't ever pay them more. Wow.
No, of course not. That can never be they're never going there's never going to be an article that's like maybe if we just paid people more. Like that's never going to be it. I'm surprised they're not like perhaps the key is more pizza party. Um
Wow.
yeah,
So,
this is such a black hole.
but
Oh
again,
my
it's
god.
how it was presented at the top. We talked about this Business Insider article a couple of weeks ago and how misleading these corporate articles are. But if you just read through them, they tell you exactly what
Mhm.
the problem is right there. They don't really spell it out for you. You have to kind of read between the lines a little bit, like we're doing. But it's not hard to see that return to office is causing a major stress problem for this cat, and he would do much better working from home more often. So
Yeah.
here you go. Some of it comes
Not just
from why having to create return to office or hybrid policies that match the desires of work. My God.
the problem is, like, they just they hinge they hinge everything on the headline. And I see this on LinkedIn because you'll see so many people, like, resharing articles like this and giving their own take that literally doesn't even make sense if you read through the article.
Yep.
They're just like, "Okay, I'm taking this headline and I'm just gonna treat this headline in a vacuum." And that's pretty much it.
Oh,
Um,
I'm in a vacuum. Hello, I'm stuck in a vacuum. That was Austin
let's see
Powers.
here. Some of this burnout comes from having to create hybrid or return to office policies that match the desires of workers, Barrett told Insider. Meaning, if you want me to go back to the office, pay me more, or I'm just going to go work for your competitor. That's what that means.
Well,
Managers may risk harming.
that managers really don't know how to set this up either. They don't know how, like, they've never dealt with this return to office thing and how to manage. How many days do you go hybrid? What are the reasons why you go hybrid? What's the protocol? There's a lot of questions, and nobody's ever dealt with this before, really. And they're just making it up as they go along, and nobody wants to admit this. That it's all just being dictated down, and you're going to get to that, I guess. So,
And it's understandably difficult to figure out because you're trying to define a job that someone did before perfectly fine in their home as like, here's the stuff you need to be in the office for. Well, it's like, well, you don't really need to be in the office for any of this, do ya? Cause you did it all from home. So let's see.
yeah.
Managers may risk harming team morale by instituting a stricter return to office policy, though they may face difficulties managing workers with drastically different preferences. Except, no, they won't. What are the difficulties? Can you explain the difficulties to me? Can you explain how what the differences are in Zendesk when I pull up the stats for someone working at home and someone working in an office setting? Because I can guarantee you that there was no point in time throughout my entire CX career that I didn't know exactly how productive everybody on the team was doing. It's quite easy. And it didn't matter if they were working in an office, it didn't matter if they were working in another country. It's all right there. So,
Well, what they want, they're
contemplating
talking about
filing.
water. They're talking about water cooler shit. They're talking about camaraderie. They're talking about getting to know your coworker, I think, and that doesn't really happen anymore. As often as people are moving around, as often as like the way that this job market is, it's just so rare that you see these close knit teams that stay together for a long time, and to force it because by location, force this kind of relationship building that, oh, they're going to feel bad about leaving their coworkers. You're kind of dealing with that now, but you know what?
Mhm.
And now you're like, you know what? Fuck it. Like, this company would cut me tomorrow. It's not about the coworkers, because they'd cut them tomorrow too. They're nice people, but we're all here not to make friends. And go ahead.
I mean, yeah, and it's like and it's like I told the dude I did my exit interview with today. I straight up said like I don't want to leave, but this job just doesn't pay enough money. Um and I feel like that's kind of a useful tactic too. You get these coworkers who become friends and all of a sudden the work thing work becomes like the second family, memes aside. And all of a sudden, the concept of leaving means you don't just leave like one workplace for another workplace. Um, you're leaving interpersonal relationships. And I feel like remotely, it's more difficult to foster those interpersonal relationships because you are removed. There is a distance, and I've made some incredibly close friends from the work from home environment, some who I speak to every day. Um, but I feel like there's a much lower chance of that happening as opposed to like a whole team that you see every day that you kind of have to talk to and build relationships and build rapport with. I feel like it's just a much lower chance of you having that like complete camaraderie. And that makes the prospect like we talked about of, looking around and seeing what else is out there. And if the grass is greener, it makes it a lot more daunting.
Yep,
So,
for sure.
all right. Contemplating calling it quits. Kyle said his flexible management style in past years paid off as he had high return. What does flexible management style mean? I feel like
Meaning,
that means having a drinking problem, but
well,
that's
that's
me.
part of it, but it's also empowering their people and not micromanaging, because he lets his people be successful on their own. And he was flexible in how he allowed them to operate. But he's got to be a lot more strict. Like he said, he's had to crack down on company policies. I knew that's where he was going with it. Go ahead.
No, that's and I was forced to do that when we had a client that just like out of nowhere started demanding like way more productivity. I had to go from like, I'm on your guys' side to, all right, I have to be on these guys' side and also like poke a red hot fire poker in their butts because I don't want a bunch of these people to get laid off. So I know that. I feel it.
Yep.
Like return to office. Kyle fears more employees will leave. Well, Kyle, they're probably going to.
You're probably right.
What's more, Kyle worries his employer may mandate 4 to 5 days a week in the office. I never want to read that word ever again, and I'll let you guys guess which one I mean. Um, they're not going to be very happy about it. Wow, Kyle, that's fucking profound, dude. Having to walk that line knowing what I know and also trying to be a transparent manager is really difficult. Well, no, because at some point you're going to have to realize that you can't be on these people's sides unless your company's on their side, and chances are they aren't.
I feel like
I
he's
don't
just
want to
trying to
lose more
hold on
people in
by his
inflation.
fingernails. Like, I feel like he's just hanging on by his fingernails. Like, I know this is all over, but I'm just trying to milk it and squeeze out the juice for as long as I can.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's in the back of his mind, Kyle said he knows he can keep being a resource for his team and continue leading his team to success, though he's considered stepping down to
Yeah.
become a high-level individual contributor. I've been there. I have been there where you're like, fuck it. I don't care. I don't care if it's $5 an hour more. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm done. Like, I've been there. I have absolutely been there.
Well, it's also that I don't
Despite
want to
the efforts of his
manage.
boss.
I don't want to manage because I know I can produce. I know I can perform. And if you put me at the job full time that these guys were doing, I would murder them and I would murder this job and I would murder the pay plan. And then they would change the pay plan on me because I'm too successful. But we'll get there. Let me be successful and do that. And I get why he would want to step backwards. Individual contributors don't have the responsibility of managing people. And all they have to do is just deliver on their accounts and deliver on their sales. And it's a lot of times about their effort, their hustle, their connections, and their skill. There's always some way to kind of squeeze it out if you were an individual contributor. Whereas as a manager, you are dependent completely on somebody else doing that and accomplishing that.
You're dependent on a bunch of people delivering, and honestly, like the stress level goes through the roof. It absolutely goes through the roof because you're not just worrying about yourself now. You're worrying about a whole group of people. And if you're a kind of manager like me who can be a little on the softer side, um, that sucks. It hurts, especially when one of your teammates, you might think they're great and care about them, but they're not delivering, and at some point you're gonna have to drop the hammer. The level of stress is just, if anybody's considering becoming a manager, I would ask you to speak to a lot of people um, who work as a manager and ask them to be very transparent and honest about like what the cons are. Um, because
Yeah.
your stress level goes through the roof. And if you don't know how to handle that, then it's like the problem too is once you take that leap, right? Um, it's really hard to go back.
Well,
Really
he's
hard.
well, it is. It's except that This guy is ready to do it. If they say 5 days a week, I'm back. I'm out. Bye. And I don't blame him. If
Not at
they,
all.
despite the efforts, they're trying to lighten his load, but there's no way that they're getting back to the 2022 levels or 2021 levels. And in that case, you got to go and get a fresh start and start with a new workload with a real set of expectations again, and let them hire someone that will set their expectations properly, because the company is off in what they're expecting the employee to do for the money that they're willing to spend. Or they get someone who's willing to do it for that. But it shouldn't necessarily be the person that's experienced, that's been there doing it, that they're completely taking advantage of, that has a knowledge and skill that will drain when that person leaves. That's got inherent value to the company, and they're totally not paying for that and trying to get away with not paying for it. That, to me, is wage theft as much as anything. Taking away the experience and knowledge, the in-depth knowledge of the history of the company, the history of the account, the history of how the product has developed and evolved over the years. And, we used to bill at this, and they might have signed up during this period, which if somebody came in a year from now, they won't know any of that stuff. Those little intricacies and those little experiences make the difference sometimes between saving an account and losing an account, sometimes worth millions of dollars. So, and what does it cost this company to try to step up a little bit more, to pay people more, and to try to maybe get another person back in? What does it mean? It means eating into the corporate profits. It means eating into the executive bonuses. It means eating into the options and all of the perks and all of the travel perks that all of the executives are entitled to. Those guys are not taking a haircut. They're just not. They're still flying first class. They're still eating out at the best restaurants there are on budgets that nobody is questioning, because they're the ones that sign off on them. And in the end, that's just expense. That's literally, they're draining the corporate profits, which they would then need to share with shareholders and employees in order to live the fat life. And they see that as an entitlement. An entitlement.
Yeah, because they feel like they clawed their way up from being a prole. They feel like, oh shit, I clawed my way out from this exploitation. I'm not going back down there. And that creates this, like, I've always felt like it creates this anxiety within, where it's like, I remember when I was poor and I never want to get back there.
Right.
And not for nothing, but some of those bonuses are fucking bonkers. Like, they're insane.
Yes, they are.
I've talked to some of the higher ups, and I'm like, really? You make that much a bonus a year? That's unhinged.
Yep.
And once you realize all of that is because they can, basically pay their workers, the people who actually are why they have money to spend in the first place, because they're not the ones doing the tickets or making the sales. All of that, it just comes at being able to, like, have those conversations with workers and saying, sorry, look, man, I know you guys are struggling to make rent. I know you guys are on food stamps. But you know what? Like, the company it's not in the company budget for us to increase your compensation. And I've seen some of the most ludicrous I've seen some companies have some of the most ludicrous, like, heel dragging rather, like, on earth. I found out through this whole, like, are we gonna have a bidding war thing, that, like, the promotion that they had in store for me wouldn't even have been as much as this offer would have been. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, you guys are really, like, this is how down bad we are. It's like, don't pay $1 more. Don't pay $1 an hour more. You can't do it. And then the eventual resultant effect is articles like this. where we're seeing the ripple effects of just how much of a dumpster fire work in general in 2023 is.
Won't anybody think of the middle managers? I mean, they're making comfortable livings and they're driving nice semi-luxury vehicles and they've got kids potentially in private schools. And yeah, no, I'm not really crying for them, but I understand where they're coming from. They are literally the reason why they're middle managers is because they're caught in the middle between the owners and the workers, and they're basically management directed to tell the workers that things are about to suck because they overhired in 2021 and 2022. They cut production. Then they used every excuse to squeeze everybody and raise prices. And we've got inflation going through the roof. Wages are not keeping up with it. Cost of living is going substantially higher. And people have less disposable income or no disposable income when they were already pretty much flat broke. So,
man, I mean, they're basically there to make the worker okay with their own exploitation.
Well, and they're there
to make sure
they're there to roll up report to ownership on exactly what the worker bees are doing because the ownership can't check in on every single employee. That's what the functionality and the reason why they're there in the first place, and why they're paid relatively well. They are kindergarten teachers in a lot of ways. I like to call
pretty
that,
much.
Which is one of the reasons why I've enjoyed being an individual contributor and haven't really made that push to go into management, is because I kind of feel in a way like it is babysitting. Well, it's coaching in a lot of ways. It's also babysitting. And that's because maybe I see it how, from the divas like I am personally, I know that I would be a difficult person to have to manage, for example.